It began on a quiet street in Nithari, a small urban pocket of Noida, India, where life moved slowly and unremarkably. Rows of concrete houses stood side by side, their gates rusted from monsoon rains, their windows forever half closed. Children played cricket in the lanes, unaware that their laughter echoed over a house that would soon become a monument of horror. The home at D5, Sector 31, was like any other: pale walls, locked gates, and a faint smell of rot that neighbors blamed on clogged drains. Inside lived Maninder Singh Pander, a wealthy businessman, and his domestic servant, Surinder Kohli. To the world, they were ordinary men. To the families of Nithari, they were the beginning of a nightmare. The IT started with whispers: a missing child here, a vanished maid there. Parents knocked on police doors, their voices drowned in bureaucracy. Each complaint was written down, filed, and forgotten. The disappearances spread like an unseen plague through the slum adjoining Pander's home. Fear turned the air heavy. Even the dogs stopped barking at night. By late 2006, the number of missing had grown, but no one could see the pattern. It was as if Nithari itself was swallowing its children whole. And then, one December morning, everything changed. At a plumber working behind Pander's bungalow uncovered something strange: a plastic bag filled with bones. It smelled of death, unmistakable and ancient. Police arrived lazily, assuming it was animal remains. But when they opened more bags, they found small skulls, dozens of them. The lane filled with screams before noon. Mothers rushed to the gates. Fathers clawed at the police tape. Neighbors wept in disbelief. The entire sector fell silent, except for the clicks of cameras and the rising cries of grief. Within hours, investigators realized they had stumbled upon one of the worst serial killings in Indian history. But no one, not the police, not the neighbors, not even the city, was ready for what lay inside House D5. When police entered House D5, the air was thick, heavy with decay, something that crawled beneath the skin and stayed in the lungs. Every room told a story, not with words but with smell, stains, and silence. The drawing room, where Pander entertained guests, looked untouched: neat sofas, liquor bottles half filled, curtains drawn. But deeper inside, the truth began to surface. Behind the servants' quarters, they found a room with butcher's knives, ropes, and stained floor tiles that no scrubbing could hide. Plastic bags filled with children's clothes, toys, and shoes lay stacked in a corner. In the drain behind the kitchen, more bones were buried in layers. Human remains mixed with garbage, washed away with years of monsoon water. The servant, Surinder Kohli, was the first to break. Under interrogation, his words tumbled out like poison. He confessed to luring children from the nearby slum, sometimes with sweets, sometimes with lies, and bringing them into the house. What followed was a horror that defied reason. He strangled them, dismembered their bodies, and, in moments of twisted compulsion, cooked and ate parts of them. The confession sent shockwaves across the world. Media vans flooded Noida. The Nithari case became headline news. The House of Cannibals, they called it. Families who had lost children now knew where their sons and daughters had gone. Yet that truth offered no peace. But as the days passed, a darker question rose. Was Pander, the rich man of the house, truly innocent? Kohli claimed his employer not only knew, but sometimes watched, sometimes joined. Evidence of Pander's involvement was murky: obscene photos on his computer, secret parties, missing persons reports buried by bribes. Some investigators swore Pander orchestrated everything, while others believed Kohli acted alone, driven by mental illness and isolation. The courts turned into a circus. Kohli's confessions changed, then retracted. Pander's lawyers painted him as a scapegoat. Forensic evidence contradicted witness statements. The public wanted blood, the families wanted closure, and the truth, the real, unfiltered truth, became a blur. Still, The horror of Nithari was undeniable. 17 sets of remains were identified. Each one told a silent story of a child who never came home. And even after the house was sealed, neighbors claimed they could still hear faint knocks from the walls at night. Whispers of children calling out, echoing through the concrete like trapped souls refusing to fade. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Journalists, grieving families, lawyers, and spectators pressed together like the accused themselves were ghosts that had come to witness their own judgment. On one side stood Surinder Kohli, his eyes vacant, chained, dressed in a wrinkled white shirt. On the other, Maninder Singh Pandor, the wealthy businessman whose house had become a slaughterhouse. When the trial began, the judge's voice echoed off the walls. This is not just a case of murder. This is the anatomy of evil. The prosecution painted Kohli as a predator who hunted children, a man who confessed without hesitation. They presented dozens of bones, DNA reports, and Kohli's own words, words that chilled every listener. He had spoken of cutting bodies like meat, of cooking flesh because it smelled sweet when roasted. But Pandor's defense countered sharply. They said the confessions were forced, beaten out of Kohli after endless torture. Pandor, they argued, was innocent, merely unfortunate enough to employ a servant who had lost his mind. There was no direct evidence linking him to the killings. Days turned into weeks. Each hearing tore open wounds. Mothers clutching photographs of missing children, fathers shouting for justice, media crews chasing every tear. Outside the court, people burned effigies of the accused. Inside, lawyers battled over what was truth and what was terror. Then came the most haunting twist. Kohli suddenly changed his statement, claiming he had been framed, that he never ate human flesh, and that police had forced him to confess to protect bigger men. He spoke of nights in custody where his head was plunged underwater, his nails torn, his body beaten, but no one believed him. The country wanted someone to hang to by 2014. After years of trial, both Pandor and Kohli were sentenced to death for the murder of one girl, Rimpa Huldar, aged 14. Later, more cases followed, more sentences, more confusion. Yet, as appeals went higher, something unexpected happened. The court acquitted Pandor in several cases, citing lack of evidence, while Kohli's death sentence was upheld. The rich man walked free. The servants stayed in the gallows. Public outrage erupted again. Was this justice, or just class at work? No one could say for sure. This day, Kohli remains on death row, awaiting the noose that never tightens. Pandor lives quietly, shielded by age and influence. The families still live in the same lanes where their children vanished, still lighting candles outside the empty house D5 every year. And that house, sealed and abandoned, remains standing. Cracked walls, peeling paint. Locals swear it's cursed, that even today, when the night is windless and the power cuts out, you can hear children laughing faintly from inside before it turns into a scream. Years passed, but the name Nithari never faded. It became a word that carried grief, shame, and fear through every street of Noida. The iron gates of House D5 were locked, sealed by the authorities. Behind them lay only shadows, no sound, no light, just the weight of memory. Yet, for the people who lived nearby, it was never truly silent. Every night after 10 p.m., the neighborhood would fall still. Dogs wouldn't bark. Lamps flickered for no reason. And from beyond the sealed walls, some claimed to hear the faint clinking of chains. Others swore they saw a small handprint appear on the dusty windows, even though no one had gone inside for years. But the horror that truly endured wasn't supernatural. It was the living kind. The parents who had lost their children were broken in ways words could never describe. One mother, Suman, still kept her daughter's school shoes by the door, polishing them every week, as if her child might return one day. Another father, Ramesh, quit his job entirely, He spent his life sitting outside the abandoned house, staring at its gate, whispering names of the lost. The media came and went. Politicians made promises, then disappeared. The police officers who had once been accused of negligence were quietly transferred. And still, no one could say how many victims there really were. Some said 19. Others whispered it was more than 40. The rest lost in silence, their families too poor to be heard. Inside the courtrooms, years turned into decades. New lawyers joined, new reports emerged, but the answers stayed buried. The bones had spoken, the killer had confessed, and yet, no one could understand why. Forensic experts called it psychopathy. Psychologists said it was suppressed trauma turned monstrous. But those who lived in Nithari said it was something darker, something that lived in that house long before Kohli or Pander. Some residents even claimed that in the 1990s, before the house was built, rituals were performed on that land. Strange offerings, animal sacrifices. A few old workers remembered finding tiny idols buried beneath the foundation, coated in dried blood. Whether that was truth or desperate folklore, no one knew. But what they did know was this: evil had taken root there once, and even after the bodies were gone, its shadow remained. Years later, when demolition was suggested, locals protested, not because they wanted to preserve the building, but because they feared disturbing it again. One woman said, "If you break those walls, you'll release what's still trapped inside." So the government fenced it off. Nature began reclaiming it. Weeds grew over the gate. Dust layered the walls. Rainwater gathered in the cracks. But every few months, a new story would surface. A guard quitting after hearing whispers, a trespasser claiming to see a child's figure near the back alley, or a journalist swearing they recorded a voice sing, "Don't open the door." The Nithari case didn't just end. It faded, like a wound that stops bleeding but never heals. It left behind not just a trail of bones, but a legacy of fear, one that still creeps through the minds of those who dare to pass by that silent house after dark. And if you ever find yourself walking through Noida Sector 31, near that fenced-off building with its shattered windows and number plate half erased, don't stop, don't stare, and don't listen too closely, because those who do say they hear someone whisper their name back. In 2023, a team of independent investigators, journalists, forensic analysts, and one former police officer decided to revisit the Nithari house. The property, abandoned and sealed for over a decade, had become an urban legend, the kind whispered about on late-night forums and horror podcasts. Their mission was simple: document what remained inside, capture proof of the true story, and put to rest the superstitions that had grown like vines around the tragedy. But what they found inside was nothing anyone could have prepared for. Armed with drones, night vision cameras, and environmental sensors, they entered through a small breach in the boundary wall around midnight. The air was heavy, stale, with a metallic tang of rust and old dampness. The first room they entered was the kitchen, where investigators said the smell still lingered, not of decay, but of something burnt and chemical. The tiles were cracked, and on one of the walls, faint outlines of numbers and marks could be seen under the peeling paint. Perhaps evidence labels from the original crime scene. One of the journalists, Raghav, noted in his recorder, "Everything feels wrong in here. It's like time never moved on." They moved to the main hall. Broken furniture lay scattered, covered in dust. But when they reviewed the camera footage later, something stood out. A faint reflection in the glass door, showing a figure that wasn't part of their team. The most disturbing discovery came in the basement, a section that had reportedly been sealed after excavation. They found the hatch rusted, but still movable. Inside, the air was colder, unnaturally so, and etched into the concrete floor were deep grooves, circular patterns intertwined with scratch marks. It wasn't clear whether they were from tools or nails. The sound engineer noticed his recording device was picking up faint, rhythmic sounds, not from any of them. When amplified later, it resembled a soft tapping. like fingernails brushing against metal. At 1:43 a.m., the team's body cameras recorded a low, trembling voice saying, "Stop counting." No one spoke at that moment. The words were clear, almost whispered into the microphone. They immediately evacuated. Later, analysis confirmed no external interference, no overlapping signals. The voice came from inside the basement, near the center of the etched markings. The footage never made it to public release. Two members of the team refused to continue. One reportedly left journalism entirely. But the fragments that leaked online caused an uproar. Some said it was proof of lingering energy, others said it was a hoax for attention. But the officer who led the team, Inspector S. Mera, quietly stated during a private interview, "What we found there wasn't paranormal. It was something we left unfinished. Evidence, traces, things the first investigation missed." He refused to elaborate further. A few months later, the site was officially reclassified and sealed permanently. The government cited structural hazards. But off-record, multiple workers claimed to have seen new markings appear on the basement wall overnight. Even though no one had entered, the story faded once again, buried under bureaucracy and silence. But those who went near after that night claimed that when you stood outside the rusted gate, under the dim yellow streetlight, you could hear it faintly if the wind was still. Tap, 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 like something counting beneath the earth, waiting for someone to finish the numbers it never got to complete. Years after the basement incident, when the Nithari case had been archived under layers of official silence, a small packet surfaced in the Delhi police archives. It was mislabeled, stored under a property seizure record unrelated to the case. Inside were 37 photographs, 3 unfiled reports, and a single blood-stained piece of cloth folded between documents. The discovery was accidental. A clerk digitizing old evidence noticed the initials NDS/06 written faintly in pencil, a code once used by the Noida District Special Unit during the Nithari investigation. The files were immediately flagged, and before anyone could issue a retrieval order, one image leaked online. The photo, later removed, showed a concrete chamber with uneven walls, illuminated by flashlight glare. In the corner, a handprint smeared in something dark was visible, not fresh, but preserved, like it had seeped into the stone itself. The caption beneath simply read, "Recovered 14th body, unidentified female, partial remains." But among the reports, one page stood out, a field note from an officer who had resigned before the case concluded. It read, "There are more chambers below the first. Excavation incomplete. Orders came to stop. Noise reported from sealed ducts during night shift." That was never mentioned in any public record. Two journalists, the same ones from the previous exploration, gained quiet access to these files through an inside contact. What they found deepened the mystery, not of how many victims there were, but why the case was shut so abruptly. Several entries in the police logs had been intentionally redacted, not because of sensitivity, but because they referred to names that didn't exist, fake aliases or code names. One of them, repeated multiple times, was MK21. No one could confirm what it meant. In another document, dated February 2007, there was a short notation by a forensic technician. "The recovered femur bone does not match the recorded DNA set. Request retest. Denied by order." That bone belonged to one of the identified children, meaning either the original remains were mixed or there were more victims than reported. When these journalists compared timestamps between the recovered evidence photos and the public record, they noticed gaps, entire nights missing from official logs. It became clear the investigation had been rushed, silenced, and perhaps altered. As the reporters pieced together the timeline, strange coincidences emerged. The neighbors' testimonies from 2006, the missing police dogs, the unreported blood trails near the rear drain, all missing from the final court submission. But the most chilling piece wasn't written. It was an audio cassette tucked in an unmarked envelope, likely recorded during the early investigation. The tape had the faint hum of police chatter and the sound of digging. Then, abruptly, a voice spoke, not an officer's, but something softer, almost childlike. It said, "I can still hear them. They're not done." No one could trace the origin of that recording. Voice analysis failed. It didn't match any known victim or family member. The journalists tried to publish what they found, but the story was pulled minutes before going live. Their newsroom received an anonymous message: "Stop digging the grave you're standing in." They backed off. One of them, Raghav, disappeared 6 months later during a reporting trip in the hills. His laptop was recovered, water damaged, containing fragments of what seemed to be a draft titled "The Basement of Noise." Forensic experts restored part of it. The last readable line was, "It's not just one killer. It was something bigger. Someone wanted it buried forever." The official inquiry into the new evidence was quietly dismissed as data corruption. The files vanished from digital archives soon after, but survivors of the families claimed that after those reports came out, dogs began howling again near the sealed house, exactly like they had before the first discovery years ago. And in the night, when the neighborhood was silent, people said they heard it: a metallic scrape beneath the soil, followed by faint, hurried whispers if the voices weren't gone, just waiting for someone to uncover what the police buried next. When Raghav vanished, it wasn't news. It was quietly erased. His editors released a statement saying he was on extended leave, but his apartment in Delhi told a different story. The door had been forced open, not broken, but picked clean, the lock dismantled with precision. Inside, the floor was scattered with printouts, maps of Noida Sector 31, and sketches of something that looked like a second structure beneath the Nithari house. One that no official blueprint mentioned. His camera bag was gone. His phone, too. But what police found, tucked behind his refrigerator, was a flash drive sealed in transparent tape. On it were fragments of video files, corrupted but partially viewable. The first clip opened in a narrow tunnel, shaky footage, flashlight beams cutting through dust. Raghav's voice whispered over the static, "This is below the main drain line. There's another passage leading east, not in the city map. Smells the same, iron and damp earth." Then came silence. Footsteps, breathing, and a distant sound. Chains moving, not violently, but with rhythm, like something being dragged slowly across the floor. The file ended abruptly. Metadata revealed the timestamp: 3:12 a.m., 2 days before Raghav disappeared. The second clip was stranger. It showed a single bulb flickering, hung from a cracked ceiling. The camera panned across broken bricks until it focused on the wall. There were symbols etched into the plaster, not religious, not random. A pattern repeating, a spiral folding into a handprint, then back out again. Under it, someone had written in Hindi, "Sab wapas aayenge. They will all return." Investigators dismissed the footage as staged, yet one retired cop recognized the handwriting. It belonged to a constable who died in 2007 during the first Nithari excavation. The flash drive contained a third and final file. Only 6 seconds long. A dark corridor. Heavy breathing. Then, just before the frame went black, a voice whispered close to the microphone, "You shouldn't have come back." That was the last confirmed sign of Raghav. Months later, hikers near Lansdowne Forest found a weather-beaten backpack. Inside were notebooks filled with scrawled entries in Raghav's handwriting. The final pages were water-damaged, but forensic restoration revealed fragments of his thoughts. He wrote about someone following him, not a man. An outline. He described dreams that bled into waking life. Corridors lined with faces he couldn't see, the sound of chains beneath his bed, and a growing sense that the basement never ended. It only moved with me. In one entry, he noted that he'd met a woman who claimed her brother still screamed from below the house. She told him the walls were still warm when she visited the site years after demolition. But it was the last line that froze investigators. They never caught the real one. The basement was just a doorway. The case was reopened briefly when the footage leaked online again in 2021, this time uploaded from an IP address traced to Nidhari itself. The account vanished hours later, and no one ever confirmed what lay in the tunnels beneath that drain. But construction workers claimed they were instructed to pour reinforced concrete mixed with lime and gravel, an unusual combination that prevents decay. When the new apartment complex was built on the same ground, tenants began reporting scratching noises from under the tiles. Maintenance crews dismissed it as rats, until one night a pipe burst and workers found an empty cavity, perfectly square, hidden beneath the flooring. Inside, nothing but a single rusted chain and a press ID card. Faded, but legible. It read, Raghav Singh, investigative journalist. The ID was taken by police and never seen again. And just like that, Raghav joined the list of the Nidhari shadows, the ones who vanished looking for the truth. Years passed. The Nidhari house was long gone, replaced by glass, paint, and the hum of air conditioners from a new apartment block called Shantavan Residency. And no one who lived there wanted to know what stood before it. The past was paved over, sealed in concrete and denial. Until the monsoon of 2018, when truth began to leak again. Literally. It started as a simple maintenance call. Residents on the ground floor reported a foul stench seeping through their bathroom drains. The building management suspected a broken sewage line, but when workers removed the tiles, the smell intensified. Metallic and rotten. One of the plumbers, an old man named Rahman, had worked in Noida during the original investigation years ago. When he inhaled the air rising from that crack, his hands shook. He told the supervisor, "This isn't sewage. This is old death." The management immediately resealed the area and filed no report. But 2 nights later, the tiles lifted again, pushed from below, as if by trapped air. A tenant filmed it, posted it online, and within hours, journalists were back in Nidhari. One of them, Sonal Kapoor, had followed Raghav's disappearance years earlier. She returned to investigate, this time with a small documentary team. They secured permission to inspect the drain line, but what they found wasn't a pipe. It was a hollow chamber, lined with old, decayed bricks that didn't match the building's foundation. From that chamber ran a narrow passage, one that didn't exist on any blueprint. It stretched northeast, toward what used to be an empty field, but was now a car park that Sonal's team went down with portable lights and cameras. The tunnel was half flooded, filled with the smell of rust, earth, and time. Along the walls, they found metal rings, old restraint anchors, buried deep in mortar. Some still had fragments of rope clinging to them. Then came the markings. The same pattern Raghav filmed years ago, a spiral folding into a handprint. But this time, there was more. Beneath it, scratched faintly with a sharp tool, was a new inscription, Sab Wapas Aa Gay. They have all returned. The footage cut abruptly when their oxygen sensors began to beep, levels dropping fast, indicating low air quality. They turned back. Only 2 of the crew made it out. The third, their light technician, never emerged. Emergency services were called, but no official record of a rescue exists. Within 24 hours, the tunnel was filled with cement under orders from local authorities. The footage from Sonal's camera was confiscated for investigation, but she kept one SD card hidden. That hidden footage resurfaced months later in an encrypted forum for independent journalists. The final frame of the video shows Sonal turning the camera on herself, whispering, "It's still here. It was never buried." Behind her, for just a second before the image freezes, a reflection appears on the wet concrete wall, not of her, but of a man in formal clothes, his face expressionless, staring straight into the lens. Digital analysis confirmed it wasn't any member of her team. Experts tried to explain it as light distortion, But those who've seen the uncompressed footage claim the figure's reflection moved closer, frame by frame. After the footage leaked, Sonal vanished while en route to Delhi. Her last phone ping was from a highway 10 kilometers from Noida. Her car was found empty, the engine still running. Authorities declared it another unsolved disappearance. But locals say the stench returned after that night, and those who walk past Shantavan residency after midnight swear they hear a faint sound rising through the concrete, chains scraping, and a voice calling softly from below. Record everything before it finds you. When Sonal vanished, her documentary project was left incomplete, a folder of half-edited footage, transcripts, and field notes. Months later, an anonymous journalist from Delhi named Arjun Mehta received a hard drive via courier NO return address. No message, only a small sticky note on the casing, scrawled in faded pen. You wanted the truth. Listen carefully. The drive contained corrupted video files, most titled with simple dates: July 12, 2018, July 13, 2018, and so on. The last one was named the Voice Beneath.mp4. At first, the footage was distorted, glitching frames, static noise, and strange light pulses. But when Arjun ran it through a recovery program, faint audio emerged. It was Sonal's voice. She was whispering to the camera, "We're under the car park. This tunnel isn't on the city plans. The markings are everywhere. Someone tried to fill it, but it's hollow underneath. Listen." Then came the sound, deep, rhythmic, almost like breathing through metal. Between those breaths, another voice rose, distant but clear, echoing through the tunnel walls. "You found us again, and again you'll forget." The voice wasn't human in tone, layered, distorted, like several speakers overlapping. It was accompanied by a faint mechanical hum, the kind of vibration a generator makes when left running underground. Arjun enhanced the spectrogram and froze the waveform. What he found shouldn't have been possible: a pattern embedded in the audio frequency itself. The waveform, when visualized, formed the same spiral symbol found at the Nithari site. He uploaded a screenshot to a dark web investigative forum. Within hours, the thread was flooded with warnings from anonymous users. Stop decoding. That file isn't just sound. It carries data, non-audio packets. Don't open it. Some of us tried. It changes your system registry. Ignoring the warnings, Arjun played the file again, wearing headphones. He described hearing faint whispers in languages he didn't know: Urdu, Sanskrit, and something else older, indecipherable. Then his recording software crashed. The lights in his apartment flickered. His computer restarted on its own, and when it came back online, every folder on his desktop had been renamed to the same phrase: "There beneath." 3 days later, his neighbors reported a foul smell seeping from his flat. Police forced entry and found Arjun's workstation still running, screen frozen on the paused video. Arjun himself was gone. Forensic technicians analyzed the hard drive. They found that the Voice Beneath file was no longer a video. It had rewritten itself into a system executable, spreading fragments into every storage sector. But one detail made no sense in the file metadata. The author name field had changed from Sonal Kapoor to Moninder S., the name of the Nithari house owner executed years ago. The recovered frame from the video showed Sonal standing in the tunnel, light flickering, whispering one last line: "He's not dead. He's been waiting." Moments before the frame turned black, a face emerged from the darkness behind her, pale, familiar, and impossibly real. When authorities enhanced the image, facial recognition software flagged a 93% match with Arjun himself. The footage was sealed. The case was never reopened, but IT technicians who worked the cleanup later claimed their hard drives never stayed clean, even after formatting. They would occasionally find one single file in the recycle bin, unnamed, containing just audio, a deep metallic breathing. If you play it long enough, a whisper breaks through the static: "You've heard me now. You can't delete me." The year is 2024. Across the world, strange reports begin surfacing, each small, isolated, easy to dismiss. But together, they form an identical pattern. In Buenos Aires, construction workers demolishing an old hospital find a sealed basement. The walls are lined with crude chalk spirals, the same design from Nithari, drawn decades before that case ever happened. In Berlin, police discover a series of YouTube accounts posting white noise videos titled Only by Coordinates. When tracked, those coordinates point to missing person sites, abandoned wells, subway shafts, and forgotten bunkers. And in Delhi, in the neighborhood where Sonal disappeared, locals say the ground trembles at night, as if something underneath is breathing again. Journalists call it a digital haunting. Engineers call it a networked anomaly, but those who have heard the recording of the voice beneath call it a resurrection. The pattern expands. Cybersecurity firms notice that every few months, a random government database experiences a minor corruption, tiny, unnoticed at first. But when they visualize the binary error map, the pattern resembles a spiral. Satellite imagery picks up heat signatures below residential zones. Deep, rhythmic, pulse-like movements, consistent with subterranean machinery or geothermal activity. Except, there's nothing on record beneath those locations. Then, one night, a live streamer in Lucknow accidentally broadcasts something strange. He was testing night vision while exploring an abandoned farmhouse. He laughed nervously and panned his camera down a broken stairway. The chat froze. Hundreds of users suddenly stopped typing. The feed filled with a single repeated comment, auto-posted by an unknown bot account. "You shouldn't be here." The stream ended abruptly. When investigators reviewed the footage later, the final 3 frames revealed a blurred face, standing at the edge of the light. Neither completely visible nor entirely human. They enhanced the face. Facial analysis failed, not because the face was distorted, but because the system recognized it as multiple people at once. All of them, victims of old, unsolved disappearances. The man who knew months later, an encrypted message reached a tech journalist named Ravi Bhatia, claiming to be from Sonal's missing colleague. The message contained a single sentence and an attachment labeled rootmap_final.kml, a Google Earth overlay. The spiral was never a symbol. It was a circuit. When Ravi opened the map, his screen rendered a glowing web of points connecting Nithari, Berlin, Buenos Aires, and 14 other locations across continents. Every line converged on one place: the Bay of Bengal, near an unmarked oil platform decommissioned in 1997. That he zoomed in, expecting to see coordinates. Instead, a message flickered briefly on screen before the program crashed. "You found us. Come home." Later that night, Ravi received a call from an unlisted number. The voice on the other end was calm, low, and disturbingly human. "You're standing on them, Ravi. Every city is built on something buried. We just listen." Then, silence. When authorities traced the number, it led to a disconnected landline registered to an address in Noida Sector 31, the same block where Moninder Singh Pander's house once stood. The final transmission, the last known file associated with the Nithari network, appeared 2 months later. A Reddit user posted a thread titled, "Found this in my server logs. Need help decoding." Attached was a short .wav file. When played, it produced low-frequency hums, followed by a child's laughter. Spectrogram analysis revealed hidden spectrographic text. The words slowly formed across the frequency bands. "We never died." That post was deleted within an hour. The user's account no longer exists, but mirrors of the file spread on Telegram, on dark web forums, and later, unknowingly, on TikTok, disguised as background audio. Viewers report feeling watched or hearing soft whispers behind the music. Forensic audio engineers who analyzed it discovered an embedded subharmonic signal, too low for normal speakers to reproduce. but enough to vibrate physical objects ever so slightly. One lab reported that after playing it overnight, their walls began to crack along spiral lines. The epilogue: the world moved on, as it always does. The Nithari name became another page in true crime history, a dark, distant memory. But data scientists still find anomalies: corrupted GPS pings beneath populated areas, deep frequency pulses, whispers picked up by microphones even when muted. When filtered and slowed down, one recurring phrase emerges in every recording: listen beneath. It is said that if you play the original voice beneath audio file at exactly 3:07 a.m. and let it loop, your floor begins to vibrate faintly. Some call it imagination, others call it resonance, but those who truly listen say it's breathing back.